All right.
We ready to rock? All right.
I think we're ready to rock.
We're ready.
I'm ready to rock.
I'm just wondering if Mackenzie's ready. We've got somebody new on the board today, everybody. So
right. We have a new DJ.
Yeah, she seems pretty good. She's confident. I think she's gonna nail it here. So
yep.
Welcome everybody. Whether it's morning or afternoon, depending on what part of the country you're in, good morning or good afternoon. Welcome to Mastering the Project Lifecycle. Here with TrebleHook today. Excited to have you join us. We've got a great crowd as usual.
Awesome. Let's go do intros, John. You want to kick off?
Yeah, I'm John Goff. I'm Director of Business Development. I've been focused. I came out of the wholesale lumber industry, so I've always been interested in the building industry and kind of caught the technology bug, went over to Oracle and learned database and security, and I was doing a lot of that. And then I had the opportunity to kind of combine my two passions, which are tools for salespeople, CRM, and the project world. So I've been focused on projects and AEC and CRM for the industry for the last 6+ years.
Awesome. Yeah, and I'm Chris Fay. I'm the founder and CEO of TrebleHook. Glad to be here today. I'm looking at my picture there, and I realized the facial hair. I don't know if it's like the presidency typically ages you, or if it's just getting ready for fall weather. But yeah, I was have been experienced in commercial and industrial construction, project management, business development. Lead a business called TPM, and then we founded TrebleHook out of TPM in 2021. I've been working to grow and scale that business, and really CRM purpose built for the architecture, engineering, construction community. So excited to be here as always with you, John.
It's going to be a good time,
Mr. Host.
We promise, and we're going to keep the conversation rolling. Drop some questions in the chat if you have questions along the way. That way Mackenzie will grab them and we'll field some questions at the end of this. Let's dive right in. And Chris, as usual, has pulled a surprise on me. Sometimes it's a hedgehog, sometimes it's a porta potty. I never know what he's going to put in for this kind of getting things going. Now he's got some kind of crazy math going with 1 + 1 = 3. I'm sure it makes sense.
Yeah.
Somewhere, somehow.
Yeah, it's always part of the fun of the process. I think of prepping for these webinars is to throw a couple wrenches in the system. So I thought I would kind of mess with us here. I was helping my son with some math the other day, and so there's a couple things that are hot on my mind, and mathematics and algebra are there. So figured I'd start here. So yeah, so today we're gonna keep this pretty simple. I mean, we're talking about the project life cycle. We're talking about how to master that project life cycle, and really that is the core to any project in an AEC firm. And when we talk about the life cycle today, we're not talking about getting out there with hammers and nails and cranes and actually building the project. We're not talking about your Revit licenses or how you're actually designing. What we're talking about is how projects actually move through your business. So the project life cycle of how projects move through your business. And so today we're going to talk about really two key principles, which is the first one and then the second one. And when you combine those two together, we actually create acceleration and momentum in the business, which is the 3. So today we are going to prove that 1 + 1 does actually equal 3.
All right.
Okay.
So this slide really it goes to the fact, and we have this conversation all the time. Me as a salesperson of software, or if somebody's selling a thing or a widget, a product, much different sales cycle than projects. It's just a different kind of process. We're going to go through a lot of those differences and how you really need different systems to capture a lot of those differences.
Yeah, I think that the foundation, obviously everybody that's with us today is likely in the architecture, engineering, construction industry or subcontractor or real estate or what have you. But, what sets the foundation for our conversation today is really to understand the complexity of an AEC project. Whether you're a designer or a builder, just the sheer complexity of the project lifecycle in your business versus cloud-based sales, selling software or services like we do, or selling widgets. And so I wanted to just start with that today to think about this foundation, because it really helps us understand why this conversation is so important.
Absolutely.
So I thought we'd have a little fun, John, if you're okay with that.
All
Typically, we don't like boring. You know, I've sat on boring webinars before.
Yeah,
I don't
we
like
try to
boring
change it up a
stuff,
little bit,
and so
yeah.
we're gonna throw a couple wrenches in it.
We're
But
going to introduce some Chat GPT into the conversation.
yeah,
Chris was doing some homework here.
my new best friend. I had storytelling is that I had an opportunity to sit down with a consultant in the AI space out of Orange County last week, and we were talking about ways to leverage AI and in our businesses. And obviously, there's a lot of conversation around AI, and we're working on AI in our tools, and there's some pretty interesting statistics. But I thought I would bring Chat GPT into the conversation today, and we described that Chat GPT today, or any chat bot or AI feature, has roughly a high school education.
Yep.
The interesting thing is that in 6 months, he said it's going to have a PhD, and then by the year 2030, we're going to have 10 trillion more pieces of data and insights out of AI than we do today. And
my goodness,
this is the biggest evolutionary change that we've seen since the advent of the internet. So pretty cool stuff that's out there. But I thought what we would do is he really talked about, and we talked about using AI as a tool and a guide. So I thought, I was like, hey, we're trying to prepare. How do we prove that the project lifecycle of in an AEC firm is far more complicated than something that selling software or selling solutions. So I went and had a conversation with ChatGPT. And if you haven't actually used the conversation tool on your smartphone, I'll encourage you to do that. I actually talked to ChatGPT for 45 minutes on the ride home the other night. We solved the world's problems. But so I just did some homework. Like, hey, talk to me about the size. How many folks are involved in a construction project, and companies, and the size and scale versus product. And we actually came up with some pretty interesting statistics to set the foundation today.
And the results. And when we were going through this before, Chris, it really hit me like we kind of knew this, right? In our gut, we felt like directionally this was correct. This is where we were going to go. It's really interesting to see the numbers play out. But it kind of supports what we already thought.
Yeah, 100%. And so, we talked about all right, let's talk about, the difference between a product-based cycle and a project-based cycle. And so you can see the numbers. I'm not going to read it to you, but kind of the product statistics on the left and the project statistics. And what I thought was interesting was the X factor is
how many more people and how many more companies are involved. It's far more complex.
We're dealing with things that are 235 times the value of a product-based sale. I think about our average deal size versus the average deal size of a construction project. There's 11 times the amount of companies that are involved, 8 times the amount of people, and then the time by which that projects take to move through our just life cycles and our journeys, are 4 to 5x what it would be to move a product through a cycle. So this is really key for all of us. We know this in our businesses, but as we talk about this 1 + 1 = 3, it's this data that backs up some of the conversations that we're having today.
Right. So the first one in our 1 + 1 scenario here is the importance of understanding and mapping out the project life cycle for your individual firm.
Yep.
We do it here, right? I mean, ours is not the project life cycle, but our customer journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really the one. It's funny. I actually had 1, 2, and 3, but then I realized that 1 and 2 actually does equal 3. So we're doing 1 and 1 = 3.
Okay, welcome to my world, everybody.
That's right. Yep, you can see what type of leader I am. So the first thing of our 1 + 1 is really understanding the project life cycle, or the journey map of how projects move through your business. And again, this isn't the construction schedule. This isn't the what's happening externally. This is what's happening inside of your business, the life cycle or the journey map, And in the tech space, like where we are, we talk about there being a customer journey map. How do customers move through our business, and service and support and sales and invoicing and adoption and all the components here. But in the AEC space, because of the complexity, it's not always the customer that's at the center. It's really the project.
Right.
And you think about, whether if you're a GC, your customer might be the owner, or even the design firm. If you're a subcontractor, your customer is the GC. If you're an engineer, it matters. But at the core is your project. And so the first thing that we want to do is to really have a deep understanding of our project life cycle. And so a couple things that we talk about, and we're actually going to show you an example of what we do internally, of how we map out all of our processes. But there's a handful of key things that we need to do to really map out our journey map. And so the first is just to understand the big picture phases of the way projects move through your business. So, in TrebleHook, we look at potential projects that have not yet been won, that might be in pursuit, and contracted projects. So that's kind of the phases. Underneath the phases, we have the various stages, right? So this is kind of like a lead, then it moves to an opportunity, then proposal, and then we go into the submit for startup, and then there's closeout, et cetera. We want to map out the various roles, like who are the people and departments that interact along each step. So when does pre-con get involved? When does estimating and marketing and operations and so on? And then what is the underlying tech stack that's supporting the process? What are the various deliverables? What are the templates and forms that we have that support the process? And then also what's critical is to understand the required information that we want to gather at each step of the process. So I know there's a lot here, and I think it'll make a bit more sense when we show the examples. But the very first step is to make sure that we take the time to go through and establish an effective journey map of how customers, in our case, or projects in an AEC firm's case, moves through your business.
Right, and that's really the big picture here is you've got people, you've got teams, groups, et cetera. They're all kind of living in their own world and systems to a certain extent, but the ability to map out like where they're going to be involved, what their role is, identifying that so that you can create a process for them to follow and kind of standardize that process across the whole journey of the project lifecycle is really what it's all about. It's like, who are the people, identify them, identify when they're going to get involved, what they're going to do, and just kind of map that out and have a real plan.
Yeah. And I'll kind of just say, and we'll talk about time a little bit later, but this takes some work, and I know, like for us, it's probably a 12-month. It took us a good 12 months to really do the detailed work that we wanted to accomplish to map this out inside of our business. And so, again, something we can all get started on. So we'll talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, we got everybody involved at the Hookathon.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
We started it all off, getting everybody together and really brainstorming the whole thing to kick it off.
Yep, that's right. Awesome.
So here's our version of our customer journey map here. So we use the layer method and approach here. And you can see it mapped out, really how we laid it out in the previous slide here by identifying first the overall phases, which for us are land, adopt, expand, and renew, and then the various stages underneath that and the roles and the people. And this is what we've spent a lot of time doing.
Yeah, and it started with just kind of a vision of how we wanted to manage the phases and stages, right? So if I'm an AEC firm, obviously your journey map, your project journey map or project life cycle is going to look different than ours, but it started at the top. So we have a handful of different business units, and we have a handful of different markets that we attack, but each of them fall under the same overarching one. And I remember we were on a call yesterday with a client, a construction company in Louisiana, and we were specifically talking. They have 3 strategically different business units: a vertical construction group, an infrastructure group, and then a steel group. And even though those 3 business units are different, managed differently, different kind of time frames and such, they all should fall under an overarching journey map of how those projects move through the business. So this is kind of where we started. And then the next iteration is to really get into the weeds. And we took each of those stages and we brought all the stakeholders together, and we sat down and we said, okay, what happens here? Who gets notified? What information is required? When does marketing get involved? When does operations get involved? When does sales and the customer get involved? What's the underlying tech stack that's supporting each of these various steps and stages? So this looks super detailed, and I would say that it is.
Yes,
right?
It
is.
Yep.
And what's interesting is when we facilitate some of these conversations with our customers, we're all so busy, right? We're out there doing what it is that we do best. And it takes oftentimes an intentional step for us to take a step back and to almost slow down, to speed up, to document these things. So, but this is, we're talking about just in general, the journey map of how you move projects through your business, or we move customers through our business. And it's got to be a step-by-step approach. You have to do it. And the other thing I would kind of say just in general in this is you uncover things that you had no clue existed.
Right.
When you involve other parts of your business, like, oh gosh, I didn't know that you guys did that, or I didn't know why you needed this piece of information, or when you needed this piece of information. So it definitely brought some understanding and some buy-in to the group as well.
And some better, more concrete deliverables. That was the other thing that we really came out with. We're going to, we need this. Well, why don't we have that? Well, we've put it off for a while. Well, we probably need to focus on this and get that out too. So just to put some rails around some of the things that you have in mind, we think we should do. We're doing these things well. There are some gaps here that we've identified. How are we going to approach those? And then you can really just attack the plan.
Yep. So that's kind of the first one, and is to really make sure you take the time to understand how the projects move through your business.
So the second one in our 1 + 1 = 3 scenario here. So we're talking about identifying and planning and mapping out and your project journey life cycle. The second piece of it really is having the tools to carry that mission out, right? So investing in scalable solutions that are built for the project world.
Yep. And I think the biggest thing for us to think about here in a couple of regards is this business is hard. All business is hard, but the AEC business is tough. And we want our people spending time doing what it is that people are best at. Using their brains, being creative, collaborating, and coordinating. And we want to rely on technology to help do those mundane, repetitive tasks,
right.
Remind us, keep us on task, so that as people and humans, we can actually go add the value that we want to add. So, we've kind of talked about that process, but we have to have the right technology in order to support it. And in AEC, there's tons of tech, right?
Oh, yeah.
In all of our businesses, there's tons of tech. But you think about in an architecture firm, the digital asset management tools, and maybe you're using Ignite or SharePoint, or you're using email marketing tools, you're using project management tools, using estimating and pre-construction tools, collaboration tools. There's all these disparate tools that we have.
Some are standalone, some are kind of combined, some do a little bit of this and a little bit of that.
That's right. That's right. And so, and oftentimes those systems are disconnected.
Yeah.
So when we talk about having the right tech stack, we actually view that the CRM solution, which is actually the very first entry point of a project. If I was mapping out a project life cycle of how projects move through an AEC firm, project enters, we first hear about a project. The very first thing it's going to come into is your CRM system.
That's right.
But if done correctly, the CRM system is actually the central repository of where all prospective project information sits. And also it ingests information from your project management system and digital asset tools and your ERP and accounting tool, such that you have one central repository in CRM. So, that's why we believe that CRM is such an important component of an AEC firm's tech stack, and what is ultimately the very first foundation of what drives the process that we want to drive.
Yeah. I mean, you're not going to do all of the work in the CRM, but it is that kind of central place that acts as the holding place for data from other systems.
Yep.
And
I think that the viewpoint when you talk to people out there, I don't always believe that people see CRM in that way. I think oftentimes people say, our business development people need something to go track opportunities.
Activity management,
right,
stuff like that. Yeah, making sure, hey, know who talked to who, when they talked, what they talked about.
Right.
That's okay, basic stuff. Yep.
and I think when you open up the conversation, you realize if you have the right solution, what it actually can do for your business. We'll hit on that here in just a bit.
Yep. So scalable solutions, just to kind of recap on this, and we talk a lot about CRM. We have to bill ourselves as a CRM, or nobody would find us, right? but really we look at ourselves as more of a PRM. It's not a term that's out there in the marketplace, so we can't be the only PRM in the world. Maybe we take over the market here, and we will be
the number one PRM solution.
PRM right now, we're the number one PRM if we choose to be. But that's really what we're doing. We're managing projects, and that's really but different from like a project management solution. But it's a project relationship management kind of approach that we're focusing in on. That's really where the value is.
Yeah, and I think we talk about CRM a bunch, and I think that was kind of one of the foundational elements for today's conversation. Is we're buying CRM solutions, but again, in AEC, it's about the project. That's the center point. So we'll keep saying we're a CRM, so everybody knows what we do, but really, it's really about the project. And I think when we look for the right scalable solutions for our business, there's a handful of things we want to make sure that that we ask of that solution to set us up for this acceleration. And obviously you want a tool, quite honestly, and a partner that speaks your language. That knows how to understand. They know the AEC space. They know how projects move through the life cycle, and can not only provide you a technology solution, but can also give you guidance and best practices from the industry. And then the reality is we also each of our businesses are unique. Now, a lot of architecture firms do things a similar way, engineering firms, construction firms, but each firm has their own unique attributes about how they build their company. So we also want to make sure that solution is configurable and it can actually adapt and change to the way that we run our businesses. Obviously, we want to connect with the various stakeholders along the journey. We want to make sure that we can drive critical processes through our CRM and our various solutions. Integration is a huge one, right? We talk a lot about the value of connecting and integrating tools. I think that everybody out there wants this like one piece of software that will run
the magic software.
But we realize it doesn't exist, and it's really going to be a blend of a few key impactful tools that connect. And then the other thing is we really want to make sure it provides data insights. We want to put all this data in such that we can get data and value out that's going to help us grow our businesses.
Right. And a lot of times we use that approach to kind of reverse engineer things too. It's like starting out with like how we're going to build things inside of our system for our customers. Well, what's the end result that we're looking to achieve? Once you kind of work from that point, now we're gonna how are we gonna drive the data and surface it to people at the right times so that it drives the reports and executives can view all that and it's accurate, it's up to date, it's on time.
And that's honestly, that's one of the things at least for our business that I want to make sure that we continue to push forward on is, it's great that we give somebody a CRM solution and they can start tracking their project journey and such, but the value comes from what we can do with that information.
Right.
The insights that are going to help us grow our businesses, to help us steer the direction of where we should be taking our companies. And that's really what we should be asking it, but we can't ask it to do that until we get the foundations correct. So, I think the foundation for us today as we talk about this, what CRM or PRM in our world is we should really expect it to be that central repository, that single source of truth for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a little, this is scenarios that we come across all the time, right? Like we want to identify when we're getting to know somebody for the first time, who are the people, who are the teams, what do they do, all those sorts of things. Then we start to dig into technologies and what they have in place. And so as we go through and we're looking at, what are they using for CRM type functionality, you've got really these four kind of choices here. You've got industry built CRM solutions. You've got the more mainstream CRM solutions like, Salesforce, Microsoft, SAP, Oracle, all those that are just kind of built there for the masses. You've got Excel or no CRM or using my Outlook as my CRM, that sort of scenario. And then with TrebleHook, and we've identified, the key areas here that kind of evaluating what value people are looking for in a CRM. And certain systems are good for certain things and good for other things, and strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, and honestly, when we do these kind of podcast style webinars, it's really never meant to be self-serving. I mean, it's really just getting conversation started out there. And so I even hesitated for us to put, the TrebleHook comparison chart up here, but it really does drive home when we're thinking about the platforms that we're using to scale our companies. We've got a couple key areas, and we talked about, what we saw in the industry is that these AEC, these industry built solutions, and we don't name names or talk about competitors, but, they might be purpose built for the industry, but we learned that they weren't really easy to use. They weren't being adopted effectively. Decent, okay, ability to integrate with other solutions. The data insights were okay, and you really couldn't customize them for your needs. And there's a whole grouping of these companies that are out there that might be inside of your firm or your peer firms. And then when we looked at the mainstream solutions, some great solutions out there. I mean, HubSpot, Salesforce, you mentioned SAP and Oracle and others. But the biggest issue that we found with those is they're not built for the project. And we already talked about the X factor of how much more complicated projects are than product-based sales. So why would we buy a product-based sales piece of technology when we need a project-based sales? And then obviously no brainer on the Excel and no CRM. So that's really where, one of the reasons that we built this company is that we felt like, how can we bring the very best together of the very best in the world, in Salesforce, which is what we're built on, together with, AEC specific insights, blend those two things together and build a company that we can bring to market. So.
Yeah, it's tough, right? I mean, TrebleHook, what started with the idea about 4 years ago, I guess, Chris, and up to that point in time, there really wasn't a solution out there that you're looking at kind of easy to use and adopt. That's number one. When I look at why do CRM systems fail in companies, that's reason number one. People just don't use it. We've got 10 licenses, but how many people are actively using it? 2 or 3. And therefore, the individual contributors aren't getting a ton of value. And then leadership doesn't get the insights from the data because there's no data to drive the reports. So it's kind of like a vicious circle.
Vicious cycle, yeah.
So number one, the tool has to be easy to use and adopt, but it can't be so simple that you're going to outgrow it in a year or two either.
Right.
It's got to have the ability to grow and scale with you. And so to kind of combine all of that into one system that can do it all, that's the trick. There's many solutions that do, certain things very well, but just to kind of encompass it all is the challenge.
Yeah.
And number 3, so 1 + 1 does in fact equal 3.
Don't try and prove us wrong on this one, but yeah. So as we talk about 1 + 1 = 3, and actually let's go to the next slide. It'll make a little bit more sense.
Yeah.
Is you can go through and document your journey map, how projects move through your business, and not make fundamental changes to your tech stack. And you can start making linear progress in your business. You really can, and it's a great step, and it's something you can do today. Like one of the things that we talk about in our company is what's the do now, like progress over perfection.
Yep.
What can we do today that's going to make us 1% better for tomorrow? So starting to document your project lifecycle or journey is something you could start doing today. Only doing that gives you linear growth. And then similarly, if you don't take the time to understand how projects move through your business and all the ways that you can optimize it, and all you do is you go buy the right industry solution for your company, again, you're going to achieve linear growth.
Some efficiencies that'll help you out.
Yeah, you can use technology, but when you've actually done the hard legwork of the journey map of where you are today and where you want to be in the future, combined with the right platform, is where you get this exponential growth, and that's what we want to see, and that's why we're all here. We're here because we want to grow. We want to grow our companies, and we want to achieve that exponential growth. That's how we get to 3. We add an exponent on the end.
I see what you did there. Awesome. So, yes, we talk about it being a journey, not a destination. And there's a lot of different kind of ways you can throw it. Like, don't eat the whole apple in one bite, that sort of thing. But really breaking it down, I think it's breaking it down into things that you can do today, that you can get some key wins, some quick wins, drive some initial success. And one of your favorite things is to use that kind of flywheel analogy. You've got to start the flywheel spinning to eventually achieve the momentum that you need to grow exponentially.
Yeah, and I fall on the sword on this as a leader. As I know that I'm ambitious, and I think about all the things that we could do, and you get excited about those, and you try and get everything done at one time, and that's actually contrary to the way that you start making exponential growth in your business. We talk about this being a journey, not a destination. Documenting your project life cycle, implementing a piece of technology is just the very beginning. And really we should look at any investment in our time or money or resources as the beginning step of that journey, and how we continue to lean on that journey to do more and more and more. And quite honestly, I'll be critical of our industry in the software space. I think that a lot of software firms just try and go sell software,
right?
Bundle an implementation, get them out the door and move on to the next company. And really, I don't think that's our philosophy. I think our philosophy is, let's get you started in a piece of technology in your project lifecycle that's going to set you up for success. And then let's lean on that over time to make incremental success here. And then we talk about the flywheel from good to great, and classic book. We talked about this, I think, a webinar or two ago. It takes some time to get that flywheel spinning, and the way that you get the flywheel spinning is you implement these small changes, you demonstrate success. People get behind it and get excited about it, then a little bit more, a little bit faster, people get more excited, and before you know it, the flywheel is spinning. So that's the same way we talk about when we want to implement this exponential growth.
Yeah. So we talk about this one a lot too. The three, there's really four major keys to adoption, but three keys to adoption. So.
Yeah, I think that, honestly, and you're right, John, the fourth one is probably what we started with. The journey, not a destination, starting small, getting demonstrated success and moving on. But really kind of our call it three-legged stool of adopting anything into your business is, number one, especially in technology, you have to give users, your people, tools and resources that are going to help them do their jobs, right? So that they get on board with it because it helps them do their jobs better. Two is that you have to have top-down leadership. The leadership has to buy into what it is that we're doing and commit to making a change in the way that they lead the company, leveraging these new processes. And then finally, if you've got kind of a top-down approach and a bottom-up groundswell, the other component is to figure out ways to drive critical processes through your business that are through the technology that can't be circumvented. And driving those through the business ensures that everybody does the same thing the same way. And you get that repeatability and scalability and adoption.
Yeah, standardization and compliance really across the organization. Everybody, it'll keep people from using their own outside systems, my own little secret spreadsheet, my own this, my own that. By driving critical processes through the system, you ensure that everybody's participating. And to the first point about easy and intuitive tools, I as a salesperson, if a tool is being given to me to use, if it's not helping me do my job better, if it's causing me more problems than it is creating solutions for me, I'm going to be averse to using it. So it's got to be something that's easy for me to use, and it's got to be something that I see there's more benefit than there is pain. Because learning something new and doing something new does require a little bit of pain, growth pains.
Well, I think it's interesting in the AEC space. I think one of the challenges that we face in the AEC space, and maybe in your firm, is the seller doer model. It's when you have a dedicated business development person whose sole role is to go out there and find and create the relationships. It's one thing to give them a piece of technology to focus on the pursuit process, but when you have seller doers and people that are leading and managing and implementing projects and also responsible for sales, they've got even less time to focus on technology, and that's why you have to give them these easy to use tools.
Yep. So where do we start? We talk about not eating the whole apple in one bite. What are some things that firms can do to start things off?
And so I think we want to give everyone some like actionable takeaways to make sure that you can start making progress in your firm. And, what are some of the key things that we can do to start getting the flywheel spinning? And, we say start small, attack this as a journey, not a destination, but really what are the top 2, 3, 4, 5 most impactful things that you can do in your company to start making progress? And we run our business on a certain operating system where we manage quarterly priorities. And so, every quarter we want to attack a certain portion of our company, and then we do the next quarter and the next quarter. So as we looked at this, you've got this journey map, you've got this piece of technology. So the first step is to really implement the various stages of the project with the key required information needed at each stage. One of the things I think that we see, in other CRM solutions and others is people get really squirrely around mandatory fields. Well, I don't want to have to fill all this stuff out because it's going to take more time and blah, 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 blah. But getting the data into the business is how we then get value out of it. And so the way that we do that is as we progress a project through its life cycle in our business, we can require incrementally more and more and more information so that when a project gets won and turned over into operations or contracts or whatever you might call it, we've got the same critical information. So definitely implementing project phases or stages and mandatory fields. The second one, and this is a very complicated one, I think, in some organizations, is trying to figure out a way to consolidate databases. We've seen it where there's two databases. You got the one in your ERP and accounting, and you got one maybe in an old CRM system. But we've seen it where pre-con has their own database, and marketing has their database, and contracts does, and BD does. And so the other step is to figure out ways to bring your contact database together using a system, right, to help merge all of your contacts and accounts. And that way you're looking at one centralized means of contacts and accounts. The third one is accountability through visibility. So we talked about leaders beginning to use the data to run their companies. And this is how you do it. We have to start getting the pipeline, right? The project pipeline is probably one of the core foundational elements where projects are in the ecosystem or in the life cycle. We have to get that out and using it inside of our meetings. So leaders need to pull up the dashboard, take a look at where we are, and it's amazing. If you just show a dashboard, once a week, or, an executive or a business development team gets an automatic email with a report of the pipeline, it's amazing how that drives accountability inside of a company.
Oh no, look at all those past due deals.
Yeah, that's right. It's like, well, gosh, Chris saw that. John knows Chris saw it.
Chris is going to see that if I don't get that done before 8.
That's right. So, definitely making sure that the leadership team and we start using the data. If it just sits over in a database and we're not using the data in our weekly meetings and our weekly one-on-ones and our team meetings, we're going to miss a major opportunity. And then, the last two, really, one is around attacking the startup process. So I generally say when we built our business, the startup process was not like on our immediate roadmap, right. But we realized that when you win a job and you hand over a job from call it your pursuit team, whoever they are, into operations and accounting, and they then have to assign it a project number and get it set up in the ERP system and all the things that you do to begin execution in between phases. That process is a major pain point.
Invariably, it's a clumsy,
right,
time-consuming manual handoff of some sort or another.
Emails, forms, back and forth.
This,
right? Yeah. And so if you want to start driving a critical process through the business, that is one of the best critical processes to rally around. Is how, when I win a job, how do I turn it over? And then the last one is really around notifications. So if you invest in the right solution, each of the solutions has the right notifications and automations that you can send out. And so how can I alert marketing when a new proposal comes in automatically? How can I alert leadership team that we've won a job? When all of a sudden it comes across the finish line. So if you kind of start with these 5 things in mind and you look at your journey map and you start implementing these things, that's going to get you amazing progress on this foundation of the journey. And I would just recommend get those things in place, give it 90 days, right? Get it fleshed out, and then add the next 3, 4, 5 enhancements to your process.
Yeah, and that accountability through visibility is really big. That I'm pretty sure that most of y'all here today are having Monday morning meetings or, some kind of weekly or bi-monthly meetings that you're doing. And I talk to firms all the time. They're like, well, it's kind of like storytelling. We get together, everybody's got their spreadsheet. How's this project going? What are our chances on that one? And it becomes like storytelling hour, which is fine, but it's hard to kind of run your business that way. using a system with real data, with real reports that are up to date, brings that visibility, and you can take some action on it, and everybody can see it and know that it's real. And that, to me, that's probably the biggest key.
Yeah. Yep. So there's a couple places to start as we think about this, and so I think kind of wrapping up on the 1+1. I think it's we've talked about it being critically important to take the time to document your journey map.
Yep.
How projects move through, and then 2, we've talked about how critically important it is to make sure that your tech stack and your systems will support your growth, not only today but also in the future. But really, the power is when you combine the 2 of those, and that gets you to the 3, your exponential growth. So don't tell my son that I did 1 + 1 = 3.
Works. All right. Well, very good. We are at the end of our presentation here and conversation, but let's see if we have any questions that have been dropped in the chat along the way. If you have put it off until now, there's still time to drop something in there.
All right, Funk Master Flex, Mackenzie over here has passed a question our way around the integrations. How critical is it to integrate systems,
Yep.
to connect your ERP and CRM systems? And honestly, I would say that it depends. Future state, it's extremely critical.
Right.
Future state, it's extremely critical. Initial state on the journey, it might not be the first thing that you do.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing that you do might be one of those 5 that we talked about a second ago, but you have a vision that you want to integrate systems. So you make sure you buy a system that can integrate. You design a journey map that does support integration in the future, but it might be a second stage. So I would say, long term, 100% critical, reduces duplicate data entry and mistakes and so on and so forth. Initially, depending on where you are in your life cycle as a company, it might not be the first thing that you attack.
Right. Yeah. So long-term thinking, for sure. You want to have things set up, systems and process-wise, that are going to move you in that direction in the future. But is it the most important thing today? Maybe not. That's an individual question.
Yeah. Good question. Oh my gosh.
Chris's journey map. What the question is, what tool did Chris use to put the journey map all together?
Yeah, so Lucid is Lucid is one of my favorite tools that I use, mind mapping, and we use it in discovery. We use it to map. We use it for our organizational structure. We're not a paid supporter of Lucid, so
we're not getting commission.
This is an unfunded webinar, but yeah, Lucid is great. We've tested all sorts of tools. The Miros and the Microsoft tools and such have not found anything better than Lucid, and so that's a great tool to mind map, take notes, and to have teams collaborate together. So that's what we use on ours.
Sometimes in meetings when he's doing it on the fly, we lose track of what he's talking about, and we're watching him move the widgets and changing the squares into diamonds. Circles.
But we eventually get there.
We eventually get there.
Yes.
No. Other questions?
Oh yeah, the recording. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Everybody that attended today or that registered should get automatic a follow up with the recording. So you can feel free to share this, and we'll post it on social and get it out there as well.
Awesome. Well, good stuff. Glad you could join us today, everyone. And hopefully you got some value from this. We'll get that recording out to you as soon as we get it wrapped up here. And it's been a pleasure as always. We'll do it again in about 6 weeks.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.